Welcome to Envision Radio, from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville, City of Promise, and News Radio 98.9 and 1070 AM WINA. And brought to you by the Jefferson School Foundation, with Marky and Price, here with you in the studio from downtown Charlottesville. And the weather is great, and we're happy to be here with Terrel White, the Director of Advancement at the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation, Detroit's finest, an avid concert goer, traveler, and my favorite, a baker.
Oh, word. Word. Well, listen, here's what I'll say. Other food people have brought us things. So
what are cookies?
I just want to put that out there, that other people with particular skills have delivered stuff to the studio. So next time, I'm just going to put that out there.
I hear you.
Not a requirement, not a mandate. Not mad about it, but I am hungry. I love your radio voice, by the way.
Do you really?
I do.
It's fake.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
There's a distinct.
I got a voice for
difference.
radio.
Yeah, there's a distinct welcome to Envision Radio.
You have
that's got a. Do I have a radio voice?
You have a radio voice.
I do.
Yeah.
Is it the voice or is it the vernacular?
The vernacular.
I'm trying really hard not to curse.
Are you really?
The entire time.
Me too.
Yeah.
I've never cussed in my life.
Oh yes.
Stop that.
4-letter word. All I know is love.
Like the whole hour, I'm just like, don't do it. Because the problem was, right, I have 2 little kids. And the joke with me and my wife was we gave up a lot to be parents. Profanity isn't one of them. And so I haven't really done a great job of auditing myself for any real reason, except for now. So
can you cuss on the radio?
No, we can't get Jade.
No. I'm asking in general about radio laws.
I mean, I think if it depends, right? I don't know about like public radio, but if you're on
private
Spotify,
radio,
like you can do it. Yeah, Spotify, you can do it. I'm telling you, say whatever. We are in the air. You can say whatever you want.
That's
right?
very true.
You're on Spotify. You can say anything.
Anything.
Right? The Earth is a triangle. Who's gonna check you?
Literally nobody. You could probably get
the
that.
flat earthers will come after you.
some other shape is gonna come. And
I admire them. Like I ain't never seen somebody more committed to the bid.
Dug in.
They're serious.
My favorite thing is when people are like, well, we have flat earthers all around the globe.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yeah, you sure
all across the flat surface.
Amazing. Terrell, how are you, my friend?
I am beautiful.
Yeah?
Yeah, it is a lovely.
Very true. He is beautiful.
Stop it.
Things are great. Yeah, life is good.
We were talking about a little off air, but we'll get to it in the show. But you guys are at the Community Foundation are in the midst of a leadership transition after a long time leader. How is that going as the staff? You guys feel good about where you're headed?
Yeah, I mean, as with like anything, there's like a bunch of excitement and there's a bunch of like uncertainty and anxiety. But gotta say, it's like. It was a really interesting and cool process, and I think that we'll be better on the other side of it. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited, but at the same time, I'm just like looking forward to what's next and what comes sort of like with that evolution. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, look, let's talk about you a little bit. So for folks who don't know you or haven't had the chance to work with you, let's go childhood. Let's start at the beginning, right? And so the thing which we sort of start chronologically, cool. And then it sort of goes off the rails in like the first 10 minutes. But we always start chronologically. So tell us a little about where you're from and where you grew up, and then we'll keep it moving.
Yeah. So I will first start by actually saying that I'm a twin.
Are you really?
I shared the womb with someone.
Wow.
I don't share much else.
The old roommates?
Roommates!
Yeah.
Yep, his name is Terrence, and so he like says that I erase him if I don't talk about him. So,
yeah.
So that's the very first thing. Okay. You got it on air.
Okay.
You're a twin. Do many people know that?
It's usually my fun fact.
Identical twin?
Fraternal.
Okay.
Yeah, and it like sort of runs in our family. My dad's an identical twin.
Yeah.
My twin married a twin. So
oh my god,
what?
I know, and he has 3 kids, and none of them are twins.
Darn it!
I know.
I've heard the skips to generation.
Yeah, my mom's a twin.
My mom has twin sisters, so I was terrified.
I always wanted twins.
I thought twins would have been cool.
Because it's like one and done.
For our first. Well, yeah, but not if it's the second. Like, if you go for 2,
if
you go for 2 and yes, that, right?
She was really hitting 3, and y'all said, nope, 4.
Well, that's the
that
thing.
pissed me off.
That's what I'm saying, right? So we had my wife was pregnant with our second kid, and I vividly remember, because her dad is a twin, my mom has twin sisters, and so I'm like, oh no, like, you go for 2 and end up with 3. Like that's a whole. I need a different car. I need the whole that. My orientation's all messed up. And I remember I had this conversation with the nurse because again, like I'm stupid and like reading stuff, and she's like, "Oh, like here," and it's a boy and the da da da, and I was like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, "What?" And I was like, are there 2 in there?" And she's like, "I can't tell if you're kidding or not. Like, look, like,
look at the screen.
It's like 8 months. It's not new. It's like right. It's like it's developed. It's a person. You can tell it's a person. I'm like, what if there's underneath?
Yeah, but
like,
you don't believe it until you get out the hospital.
What if it was hiding in there? What if your machine? Right. But oh man, like that's crazy. So what does Terrence do?
So Terrence works for like a CDFI in Detroit. So I'm born and raised in Detroit. All of my family's in Detroit, so I'm the only one here. But so he works for a CDFI, and they sort of do sort of a specific business in supporting Black-led nonprofits and things like that. And so he does a lot of sort of abolition work and a lot of like movement work, and so his job sort of syncs with that. So.
Is it interesting that y'all kind of do the same type of work?
I know. Well, my background is all in like social sciences, so I went to school to be a teacher, then for like nonprofit stuff, and then to be a social worker. And his background is like finance and like business administration, so he like does all the like loans for the CDFI.
Interesting.
And he used to work for like corporate America, like Target and GM and GE.
Yeah.
And then he came over to the like dark side.
Yeah. Why'd you leave the Motor City?
For work. After I graduated undergrad, I had a job that sort of like let me move around the country. So I lived in some interesting places.
When you say interesting, do you mean racist? No, I don't know what interesting means.
I would just like to let you know it's minute 8. We didn't even make it to 10 minutes.
What is interesting?
Didn't
like
even...
fun?
You know, it depends on who you ask. So one of the places, so I lived in Denver, which
Oh,
was amazing.
Okay.
People like Denver.
And then I worked at the University of Nebraska and lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, which is usually the
sure. Yeah. Okay.
And then I moved to St. Louis to work at Wash U.
Okay. Yeah.
And so pretty distinctly, like Lincoln, Nebraska, interesting place to live.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And how is he using interest in that?
What are you looking at? I'd ask him.
I'm just saying. I already knew what it meant.
And then St. Louis, there's like the Del Mar Divide, where you literally see like a racial and like wealth divide, like literally in the middle of a street.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, it's literally like you cross
like
the street.
train tracks?
No, it's a street. And like one side of the street is like fenced in, gorgeous houses, and then the other side is sort of like, you know, the trap.
Oh my Lord.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
this Missouri?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
check that off.
Detroit.
Yeah.
Because Detroit has its own like racial history. So
Sure.
Yeah, Michigan's
Detroit's
actually
got a great airport though.
It is.
I was shocked by that. I mean, I didn't know a lot about, my history of Detroit is like Henry Ford and 8 Mile. I didn't know like a lot about it.
I just thought y'all had some cars.
Right. But I remember flying into Detroit and being like, holy crap. Like this place
What's so good about it?
It's just gorgeous. It's like really efficient. It's really nice. It was other than like the Middle Eastern airports that are sort of like opulent and crazy. And the ones in the States, I mean, let me put it this way. Have you ever been to like Newark?
Yes. I was just in Newark.
Yeah, horrific.
I went there to see Beyonce. I didn't fly in.
Oh, okay.
I drove in.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. But like the Northeast airports are all like everyone's running around. None of the all the terminals are half built. There's like a bus that doesn't go to the place where you need it to go. In Detroit's the exact opposite. It's like the doors closed. It's easy to navigate. It's like
not a rich people airport in Detroit.
That's such a low bar. The doors are
listen. Yo, airports in America.
The planes stay up.
Have you ever flown through Charlotte? You're just late
all the
time. You're just late
Charlotte
all the time.
It's crazy down there.
I just read a stat that like 30% of the flights out of Charlotte in 2024 were delayed.
Yeah,
all of them. And also, here's the thing about Charlotte that's crazy. It's so big. I'm always like, I get out in Terminal A. I got to get on in Terminal D. In 8 minutes, I got to run down that ramp past the taco place. I'm always like a mile from where I got to go. Can you just put me marginally closer to the place I got to be in this giant airport? Nah. Atlanta, I got to get on a train and go to the other side of it.
The train was fun.
It is fun.
I loved it.
It is fun.
I mean, there's been times I've gone there and the train was out of service.
No, that's
That's less awesome. Yeah, that's a biggie too.
Help! Police!
I would fall down and get one of those
One of those
carts.
work carts.
Yeah.
I was ready to update my reservation. Like, accessible.
I mean, listen, I'm just flying somewhere else. Whatever's going on at Terminal B, I'm going there. Minneapolis, cool. We'll connect up there. All right, so Nebraska, St. Louis, and then Charlottesville?
So Detroit, of course, and then Denver, and then Lincoln, and then St. Louis. Then I went back
Was
home
this
to Detroit.
all one job that was moving you, or was it a variety of different things?
Yeah, no, it was one job. So I used to do consulting work with mostly institutions of higher education. The company that I worked for did a few different things, but I usually worked at institutions of higher education.
Okay.
So I was at UC Denver, University of Nebraska, WashU, and then I left that organization to do frontline fundraising at my alma mater, which is Wayne State University.
Okay.
For undergrad.
Wow. Okay. All right. So that puts you back home.
Yep.
Okay. And then what happened?
Went on some
Experiences.
cool developmental journeys through my career.
Yeah.
And education. I had actually just wrapped my MSW, which Masters of Social Work, which focuses on social change, innovation, and policy advocacy.
Sure.
And so I sort of felt like working in higher education was like sort of working in like an ivory tower.
Okay.
And so I felt wonderful about the fundraising because I was building scholarships and opportunities, especially for nursing students was the particular field that I was doing it for.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly enriching and like beautiful experience. But at the same time, I was like having this battle with myself about wanting to actually support community change and look at that a little bit differently. And so I had found an opportunity to work with the Center for Nonprofit Excellence here in Charlottesville. And so it merged a lot of different identities in a way that I could converge it with work. And so they were looking for a director of advancement to do fundraising, but they were also looking for like a thought partner to think about systemic change in the area, and also sort of like this beautiful lens of DEI and supporting like Black-led nonprofits. And so between like the consulting work, the MSW, the background in philanthropy, it felt like this perfect little way to converge and bring all that to C&E and bring that to Charlottesville and bring that to the Commonwealth. So
Did little Terrell always want to get into nonprofit? What did you want to do when you were growing up?
So weirdly enough, like my background is like so firmly rooted in like service.
Okay.
And so at a very young age, I wanted to be a lawyer in order to be able
They
to.
they tell people that. Somebody told me I should be a lawyer. Were people telling you that?
I don't even. Well, so my parents, like bless their hearts, told me I could do anything. So like at a very young age, I was also watching like the Muppets and seeing Kermit like be a taxi driver and was like, I want to be a taxi driver.
Absolutely.
My parents were like, you can do it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's right.
My mom also told me I could be on American Idol.
Okay.
My best friend says the only
Can you
note
sing?
that I can hold is the wrong one.
Oh, okay.
People believe in you, though.
Yes.
It's really about the belief. It's not about what
I
you
had a
can do.
support system that
That's good.
firmly
Sure.
believed, but
That's right.
allowed me to be Delulu.
Yeah.
So,
There's some value to that.
I think there is value in it.
To a degree.
yes.
To a degrry. Right?
We all need somebody to believe in us, even if we don't got the talents.
Right, but at some point we need someone to be like, hey.
Isn't a lot of people telling they 10-year-old son that he could be LeBron? Like, I feel like.
They shouldn't be doing that.
But I'm sure they are.
Well, I'm sure they are because they hope he will be. That's why youth sports has turned into a huge racket. Sometimes you guys got to be like, hey, man, like, you're 5'8". It just didn't happen for you genetically.
That's
okay.
hard to tell a child.
Dang,
It is.
It's a person that's 5'6".
It is.
Did you want to be LeBron?
Never. Yeah.
It's easier than but some people learn the hard way. There's all these funny stories that you'll read about, like there was a thread that was going around Twitter that was like, when did you know you weren't going to be a professional athlete? And it was someone was like, we played against like Derrick Rose in an AAU tournament. We were 14, and he was like he dunked on me so hard I went straight to the science fair, or like, so, there's like all those moments like that where guys are like, oh, like there's another level of, particularly in sports, like another level of
Professionally,
thing happening.
You did, so you never knew because you did play.
I did play, but I didn't play professional basketball, but
I know,
played
but like
soccer
a
professionally,
sport, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So you never, so you the whole time you knew.
I knew when I was probably 18 or 19
That you was really good.
that I was really good.
You was that guy.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, once you get to those levels and you find that you sort of stack up at that level. Now, when I went overseas, even now, I was like, ooh. Because then there's a diaspora there, right? Like, I was not going to any World Cups. There's even another level of that, right? So I knew I was really good. But it is funny. I mean, I talk to a lot of kids today, and even I'm like, listen, like, I'm still better than you. Not now, because I can't walk, but up until 2 months ago. But I think it's an interesting argument when we talk about capacity, and we talk about this in our work too, particularly with young kids, and when we're talking about kids with different levels of disadvantage. Like, what is belief worth versus resource allocation versus, like, how much of that? And I think it's an interesting question, right? How much of that would you value as qualitative support, but how much of it becomes almost a barrier when you sort of juxtapose it against the reality, right? There is certainly something to telling kids, particularly, the kids who I work with, that like, yo, you can do all this stuff. But if I just say that and don't provide the resource to help them get there, that feels kind of disingenuous.
Yeah.
But we do that and we're like, we gave them a new horizon. And I'm like, well, you just kind of sold them a whole bunch of nonsense, right?
A lemon. You sold him a lemon.
Right? Truly, though, right?
And my brain went to Pharrell.
It's a great tune. But I don't know. Do you reflect on that as just like, it doesn't seem like it affected you in any ill way, right? But do you think about that? I mean, do you think about that as like what I felt was support?
Oh yeah,
right?
no. 110%.
I didn't feel like unfulfilled dreams.
Correct. Yeah. I as a matter of fact, I feel like it's like my life feels like a dream fulfilled. Me and my twin, first generation college students.
Wow.
My dad's a factory worker in Detroit, and then my mom actually became a stay-at-home parent when she had the fourth kid.
Yeah, that's
the surprise twins.
They give discounts out. They should start giving discount. When you get to the third kid, they should give you a daycare discount.
They do. It's like 10, it's like 10%.
Oh, that's nothing.
It's like sales tax.
I'm talking about like third kid free. Fourth kid,
you have lived
10% off.
lived in America for 28 years.
That's why I don't got no kids. I'm watching and looking and learning.
You believe
I ain't crazy.
that someone's going to be like, oh, we could either make a lot on this or none. I vote none.
We need to do something about this.
Yeah.
Think about new systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is that what you do over at the CACF?
That is what we're looking at doing. So our grant program Solidarity actually focuses on like both movement building and thinking about different alternative, transformative, and regenerative systems to like what we currently operate in. So just trying to think of like new possibilities instead of perhaps always working within the same system, because the system isn't always built for us. So
you we skipped a small chapter is you popped out to California.
So I didn't actually move to California for my grad program. I did it online. I actually, funny enough, I lived in Lincoln, St. Louis, and a little bit of Detroit while I was doing
As
that
you were
program.
doing that. Why did you do it through USC?
So they have macro social work is a little bit of a hard thing to like sort of get into. Not all universities even have macro tracks.
Okay.
And so I was not looking to be a clinician.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And so they not only had a macro track, but they had one that was like well developed. It was one of the first in the country. And the program was, you had the ability to do it hybrid, remote, and et cetera. And I sort of knew with my job that if I committed to a program, that meant I had to like stay somewhere.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And some of the beauty of the job that I had was that they worked with institutions of higher education, and you could really go anywhere in the country.
Right.
So they even had programs in like Alaska that I like applied to work in Alaska, and I was just like,
wow.
That's cool.
When else?
Sure, that is true. When else? Yeah.
When else?
Exactly. Can you talk to us about your launch of work consulting and what that has meant to you as an entrepreneur and doing that work in the space?
Yeah. So work consulting is something that I did after I wrapped my MSW. Like a lot of pivotal things were happening in, ironically, 2020. I know.
Hooray.
And for me, that was like a culmination of being able to bring together so many of like my different like talents and experiences to support organizations and thinking about like capacity building and sustainability. And a lot of what I actually like also love about having been in like leadership positions for a while is I got to sort of like practice my own sort of like supervising and like leadership philosophy, which centers on like emotional intelligence. And so how does, actually seeing a person as a human within the system actually shift the way that you're able to like navigate together and grow together? And so it's all about like how to think about organizations and think about individuals to like support them and to build holistically. And instead of this like sort of rat race of thinking about if I invest in this person, they might leave, thinking about investing in a human and thinking about investing in a person so that everyone is better. So if you were on the cusp of like leaving your job and you were thinking about professional development, I'm like, go for it. Like, I actually want you to be a better worker, human person. And then if you keep that here, beautiful.
Okay.
And if you move on and do bigger and better things, that's bigger and better things.
That's I feel like that looks good on you that they did bigger and better things.
Yeah.
But I feel like people are like, girl, we can't put no money to you, but if you about to, that's gonna help you go. That's gonna help you go.
Yeah. So I value like one of my mentors and old supervisors and friend at this point as well. Like most people look for jobs in secret. When I was thinking about like my next chapter in my development, like I actually had a conversation with my boss and said, hey, I'm actually thinking about like the next bigger, better thing. And because we actually shared a lot of our values and the way that we supervise, like she supervised me, we actually had that conversation and she was like,
supportive?
What supports can I give you? Like she was a reference for like my jobs.
That's crazy.
So she was like, I'll be on the lookout for things that synergize with you. And whatever professional development that you want to like think about in order to level up skills, like let's talk about it. And I had that conversation probably with a year before I ever left. So yeah.
That's unbelievable.
If you are just joining us, you are listening to Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, AM 1070 WINA. Price and Markey here with Terrel White of CACF. And a big thanks to our sponsor and friend, the Jefferson School Foundation, the proud owner of the Jefferson School City Center, jeffersonschoolfoundation.org. So so Community Foundation, let's talk about, what is your feeling on kind of as someone who's been, how long have you been at the Community Foundation?
It'll be 2 years in September.
It feels like forever.
It does feel much longer than that.
Some people get into a space and own it.
It is true, though. It does feel much longer than that. I would have said close to 5.
I was going to say 5, too.
Dang.
It's funny. I was going to say 5, and I knew you when you were at CNE.
Yeah.
So I know it won't 5.
I knew it was wrong.
I've only been in Charlottesville for 3 years.
How have you, I was going to ask a different question, but now I'm like, how have you found, what was it like to get integrated into what I think we can probably comfortably say is like a very like familiar scene, right? Like it is a very insular town in that sense. And I've heard from a lot of people that like getting into the game can be hard, particularly for someone whose job it is to sort of unearth and raise money. How have you found that? Have you done that? Right? How's that experience been? Right? It's not like a New York City where there's like, there are people everywhere. There are sort of a few doors.
Yeah. So both integrating into the community and like thinking about my work as a fundraiser, So it's probably no surprise to anyone that I quickly integrated.
Yeah.
I had friends in my first week. I
That's
moved here
crazy.
having never stepped foot in Virginia before in my life.
Yeah.
Not knowing a soul. But my very first week, I was both doing a bunch of work stuff. My very first day of work was a board meeting. So I just hit the ground running, and then quickly after that was doing social events. Was going to a drag show, was going to salsa, went to, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the concert. There was a concert at the Ting, and met people there, and doing all types of fun stuff. And I just quickly found community just doing things that I enjoy and love, like music and reading and just being outside.
It's hard to make friends when you grow, especially in a city you ain't never been. I've been here a long time, and it's still very hard.
You grew up here.
Yes, I'm saying.
Yeah, so that's probably no surprise. And then being positioned at CNE, I think, was also a really great opportunity between the folks who know and love and support CNE and getting to know that donor community, but just as well getting to know the nonprofits that we worked with and work for and are supporting. And so I got to know so many brilliant individuals. And like you said, I met you at CNE. So, while I was at CNE.
Yeah.
So I got to know not only the donors, but the people who are actually supporting the social safety net and the infrastructure of the city and our county and surrounding areas. And so it was a really great opportunity to get to know actually a lot of people really quickly, both socially when I'm outside of work and then all the things I did with work. So
did it help that you were an alpha and there were alphas here?
So I actually joined our grad chapter here in Charlottesville.
You are a graduate inductee. That's my bias.
What is?
I forgot people can join as an adult.
Oh.
I joined as a child.
Yes.
You're biased to what?
That I never am thinking that a person joined as an adult. I'm always thinking they joined in their undergraduate years.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, so you joined when you were in college.
Right.
But he was like, oh, no. I was like, so was it easy when you came here? Because you got brothers everywhere. You got sisters everywhere. It was easy, right, that you came here as an alpha and you got in with the alphas, was really big in town.
Okay.
He was like, oh, no, I wasn't no alpha when I got here. So I was like, ooh, I just made that whole story up.
Yeah, well, they always say that it's it's in your blood, it's in your DNA. So
how'd you get connected with them?
I actually, through just going to, I think it was a BPN event that was being shared with AETF, African American Teaching Fellows.
Yeah.
And one of their board members is my brother James Bland.
Sure.
And so I actually got to know him at that particular event. And then from there it was, quick connections and getting to know people and doing the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And seeing that synergy and seeing that opportunity as well.
Shout out to the ice cold man.
Yes.
Oh, Lord. Well, that's great. So, talking about in two, a lot's happened in 2 years. A lot's happened in the past couple weeks. But, I think what you said is interesting about sort of the shifting focus of the Community Foundation and also now in a leadership change. How have the priorities of sort of large-scale philanthropy, how do you feel about that, right? And we have sort of more history in this particular town, but you have seen it in places all over the country. There's the big question of does it work, right? Does the way we view sort of philanthropy, municipal money, and private money, does it even make any sense? And then the micro question is here in an area that has a ton of private money and also a giant university, are the pieces set up in the right way, right, for this thing to actually move forward? Because we have a town that's not very big, has a lot of money and a lot of resources, but things don't really seem to move, statistically speaking, and they certainly don't move quickly, right? So, as someone who sits in that, sort of in those worlds and sometimes straddles those spaces, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it is a really interesting space. Philanthropy has this tremendous power, and it's one of the reasons why I actually again like left the university setting, because so much money is like being poured into universities, but they're not really change makers.
Yeah. And they're not incentivized to be.
No.
Right? Like,
yeah. And education is political.
Right. Sure. Yeah,
and
for
so,
sure.
Very.
We've seen that in the last couple weeks.
Yes.
Right? We've seen that play out.
And so, so that's part of the reason why I like left that particular space. And so being able to think about Charlottesville and our like in the surrounding areas, there is this like unique dynamic of having resources and a small enough community that you can make sizable change with like the sort of thinking outside the box and thinking about the ways that you can invest in people and places. And I think it happens here in Charlottesville, and in some ways we don't give ourselves enough credit, and in other ways there are even like bigger audacious things that we could be doing. And so usually part of the conversation and many times is like, how does someone pour in and invest in to new ideas and resources that are actually centering the individuals most affected by them?
Right.
And so the Community Foundation has these values that have been like incredibly synergistic for me when it comes to like truth, when it comes to proximity, solidarity, and those particular things, and curiosity. And so, you know, thinking about those values and how you actually get to put them into work in philanthropy when you like tell your truth and like listen with like an open heart and open ears and have that like curiousness about you and that ability to center someone else's experience, you actually end up getting, you know, much more creative and impactful solutions to problems. And being able to like support that process at the Community Foundation has been like transformative and like really healing for myself. And so, so I think that there are still definitely like gaps in terms of like what exists. And sometimes it's about, you know, breaking and like thinking differently from like the system. And so philanthropy, when you like think about the roots of it, of course, like the beautiful thing to say, it's like, it's the love of all mankind, which is true when you like look at the root words. But also philanthropy was also a way of like intervening in political systems way back.
Sure.
And so when you like even think about the root of like how philanthropy sort of like got started, you think about how do I disrupt something? And instead of like using it in divisive ways, we're thinking about ways that we can use that in like healing and supportive and change ways to create regenerative philanthropic environments to support all of our community members and like living in a thriving and beautiful area. So there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can change and just sort of think differently outside the box, thinking about philanthropy and instead of like charity. And so instead of perhaps sometimes thinking about, you know, how many, which again is important. I want to denote that thinking about like how many mouths that I feed by giving away this money, but instead perhaps thinking about how do I actually change food insecurity and like think about the system.
Sure.
And so just, you know, ways that we can think about investing in those particular like alternative ways and new systems. So
I feel like we talked about that once before. It's like having to show a person that here are the numbers and like we should be able to help 1,000 people with this amount of money, but it's like helping one person costs a lot of money, and helping those people, like, it's about the human aspect of what philanthropy is, right? And so I think we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, do you find that, and even you as well, I think that we, in pursuit of raising money, sometimes fundamentally undervalue the actual financial resource necessary to support and sustain even small groups of people, right?
Yeah.
And it's very easy to make very bold, false claims that you can just sort of backpedal and be like, it was harder than we thought, and then move on, right? Instead of Here's what I find very interesting, and I wonder from both of your perspectives about this, of like how much of philanthropy is sort of dictated and done by people who have never had any interaction with the people for whom they are philanthropizing, right? So we have this thing of like, oh, we're going to change poverty, end poverty, move poverty. I'm like, you ain't never not once talked to that single mom with three. You have no idea this is an academic exercise to you, right? It's a dollars and cents. It's the survival line is here and she's here. You have no idea the cost, quote unquote, of the qualitative environment, right? Where she lives, what's going on with her kids, her mental health situation, right? So like, do you think about that in sort of, excuse me, these sort of grants and programs of like, if we think it costs $100,000, what is the true like people cost of that, right? For the person who, has been a factory worker for years and we're telling Terrell's dad like, hey man, get a better job because that makes fiscal sense. What does that mean to him, right? Who's now a 50-year-old man with 4 kids? Is he just like, okay, right, all right? And because that's, I think, how we think about it. That we're just like, hey, Terrell's dad, we have a grant program. You can learn to be a software engineer and make more money. He's like, great, I'm in. And we're like, why didn't he take that? We have no idea. We've never talked to him. We've never interacted with him. We don't understand that guy with 4 kids. 2, he thought he was having 3, and now he's right. We don't take into account the cost of the experience when we put together all these kind of highfalutin, very shiny programs that are like, we can do it, we can fix it. Then we all look at each other confused at the end of the day, like, oh, it didn't work, and then we sort of go dark and try again. I mean, none of that was a question, but I'm just wondering is that true, right? Do you find that that's true? Do you find that there is some sort of fundamental disconnect between the actual resource, the perceived use of it, and like the actually what it might be for and the scale of it?
Yeah. So I would say it depends on how you do your philanthropy. If you and particularly at the community foundation, sort of like I said, we've actually centered
it's really about bringing the person closer to the problem, to the solution.
Yeah. And so, and our grant programs are structured in a way where we're even hoping and like really pushing our nonprofit partners as well to also do that. Because if there's not an opportunity to see, how like to again think differently, and sometimes that single mother of 3 children have a very different idea of like what's helpful.
Yeah, I feel like it's been philanthropy has been a bit paternalistic.
Yeah,
with their clients. It's like we got the money, and so we're gonna tell you what you need because we know what you need. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and we never even asked them.
Yeah, and my social work background, like that's also one of the beautiful things about both the consulting, the work that I do, and everything in between, and just how I show up as a human. But one of the basic things about social work is you meet your client where they are.
Exactly.
And so being able to like listen and like use active listening skills to both hear someone's story, to be able to ask them about the solutions that they see, and then to be able to synthesize that together to actually like come up with a new thing. It's just part of the process for the Community Foundation. And so, we actually, the team that I manage at the Community Foundation works with our different fund holders and fund advisors. And so our team is made up of people who are able to support philanthropy and thinking and being a partner, an advisor, and a consultant.
Yeah, consultator
about like ways to like integrate some of the things that we've been learning about philanthropy, whether that's community-centered fundraising, whether that's trust-based philanthropy, and thinking about things like proximity and solidarity and truth-telling. And so being able to integrate and bring all those things together both happens like in the advancement side of the house, but also very distinctly in our programs such as solidarity. And so, I think it's a new opportunity and a new space, and we're, around for everyone. So even if you don't have a fund at the Community Foundation, like come see us, come talk to us. But yeah, it's been a really beautiful like space to grow and like think about the evolution of like our community, which has been both so wonderful for me, and just thinking about the potential of change. And that's sort of like what brought me to Charlottesville in the first place. And the Community Foundation has been a really great place to do it. So
you're in the same. What do you think about it? What's your take on that?
I think we need to show. I think philanthropists and nonprofit people need to show a little bit more humility.
Mm-hmm.
How so?
We don't know. I think because we're the people with the money, we think we know everything. But I think, and we also, it's hard to say that when we made a mistake.
Do you think that both of you? Do you think that in pursuit of? So here's what I find to be a little bit of an interesting paradox. In order to raise the money to do whatever the thing is, you got to tell some kind of story. And people want big numbers attached to that story. No one wants to hear, we're going to take these 5 kids, then we're going to teach them how to read. And it costs $100,000 because they live in public housing and they're from single-parent homes and they don't eat. And they want to hear, wow, we're going to take 5,000.
Just add 2 zeros.
What?
To your 5. Just say 500.
That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying, right? So we have this thing where then we dilute the impact of the effort, right?
Oh, yeah.
And how much of that is a lack of sort of genuine sort of steal from the actual organizations, and how much of it are the incentives in the system where nobody's going to look at that and think, I'm not funding that. Like, what do you mean it costs $100,000 to teach kids the alphabet? That's crazy, right? Like, how much of the work is education, right? But it's this exact thing. It's proximity to what we're working with. And I think we're getting, to a degree, further and further and further away from that, right? And so I'd be interested for, you who works in this and you who works in it but also has a social work flavor. I mean, how do you manage that internally? I mean, even within yourself, as someone who, you work downtown, you handle large amounts of money, you do that, but I can tell that, like, right, the wheel is spinning from a standpoint of someone who was trained to be close to it.
I don't know the question.
The question for him is how do you sort of reconcile the current nature of how the work is done with your training? The question for you is, as someone who's in a building that is far from the problem, how do you feel about that?
You go first.
How kind.
You were smart. You were kind. You was involved.
So, yeah, I feel like there's always like a level of dissonance and like
I 100% agree with you.
And it's a really interesting like dynamic to hold. And for me, I just always like continue to like look at the possibility of change. Mm-hmm. And so and I'm never quite shy of like having difficult conversations. And so being able to like be honest and be upfront, to like be authentic, and sometimes like challenge individuals to like see them, like to see where they might be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And to like see an alternative perspective and like present those things. Sometimes I think about just the fact that I have some like resilience, which is a really interesting word. Mm-hmm. To like be able to move through those types of conversations. And in some case, like some of my friends will be like, when I tell them about some of the conversations, they'll be like, I would have just cussed them out.
Yeah, yes. That's exactly how it is.
But having that like patience to actually like wait through some of the like stuff. But I mean, there's this dissonance when you're like sort of in. Now I feel like the word that I want to use is proximate mm-hmm. to like wealth and money.
Yeah.
But then you also don't come from that space.
Yes.
And then you're also like thinking about how do you support that sort of transfer of wealth and like negotiating what that like sort of like power dynamic is. It's a really fragile space.
Yeah, sure. It's a good word for it. It is a good word for it.
And so like building that trust and building those relationships is usually where I like see myself and like being that bridge to actually make some of that happen. So Yeah, it is a really interesting, and you picked up on my use of the word interesting.
Yes.
But it is it is a place that actually causes some dissonance and allows you to, I think, also think differently. So yeah.
The way you use interesting is how I use weird.
Is that right?
Yeah, when I feel like I'm like, that's weird, and my mom would be like, weird? What's weird? I can't explain it.
Yeah, it's the thing I can't.
It's a word that I'm using to mean this thing didn't happen this way before, and it is out of the norm or scope of my understanding. That's what interesting. I can't. It's not describable.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I think I personally am getting out there and trying to get closer to the problem. I'm going to these local events. I'm meeting people, building relationships, trying to collaborate in the ways that I can with very little power to do so. Like, that dissonance is obviously there for me, but I'm personally getting out in my community and trying to understand the needs of it. And
has your point of view changed?
My point of view?
Yeah.
Since when?
In the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I was young in the field, I was just so grateful, to be in a space with a job. And as I've gotten older, I've wanted to take ownership of the work that I do. And for my ideas to mean something to someone and to, like I said, if I'm going out and trying to create ideas for how we can collaborate, I don't think I was like that. I think I was just trying to get from check to check. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, dang, checks are important, but I want to feel like me and this other person, this other organization made a difference and did something that helped people.
Has experience made both of you more sort of hopeful or cynical?
Both.
Cynical?
Yeah. I'm firmly in the cynical category. Firmly. Where does your hope come from?
I think it's
some of it's your personality.
I was going to say it's the sunshiny disposition.
Yeah. Some of it is absolutely. You could tell right off the top. Yeah, some of it is. Yeah. We ain't wired quite like that.
It's both.
Okay.
Sometimes you're like, man, not surprised by what just happened there.
Truly.
And the work is hard, But if it was easy, then everybody would do it.
That's what they say. Yeah. We do have to tell people that if you are just joining us, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise. News Radio 98.9, AM 1070 WINA, Price Markey, and Terrell White here with us. And again, big thanks to our sponsor and friend, the Jefferson School Foundation, jeffersonschoolfoundation.org. Talk a little bit about that, though, like the difficulty or even kind of the, dissonance that exists. I mean, is some of the issue in that the longevity with which people can do work like this? Like, is some of the disconnect in the system a continuity issue, right? And in talking about this, particularly in the context of, look, everyone's not going to do everything forever, but you have a leader like Brennan who really built this thing into what it is, who is now leaving. Like, how do you work in a system where continuity is currency, but it's also really difficult and taxing, whereby I feel like there's this weird thing where if you have people in positions like hers that hang on for too long, you get stale. If you have people like hers that leave too early, you lose all of what they have, right? So how do you build a system around kind of that theory? Is there some kind of sweet spot where okay, you haven't been so entrenched that you're just allowed to have bad ideas, but you're not leaving, you're not burning out too early. You've sort of given a lot, you've built a good thing that can move forward and you can hand off. That feels like a really hard target to hit sort of cross-functionally, right? Because I look around, I'm like, look, we're like 4 or 5 of the wrong people leaving at the wrong time from the brakes getting pulled on a lot of really important stuff, right? But you also go I'm tired.
Yeah, I don't, if I'm tired, I gotta go.
Right? Truly, though, right?
People are doing better than me. Don't let me get too tired.
Yeah. So, sort of a few things with that. I mean, truth.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things about one of the grant programs under the Solidarity Program is actually about sort of that. It's about continuity. It's about how do we actually provide rest and spaces of like respite for our like nonprofit workers and ecosystem, so that the individuals aren't feeling burnt out, that you actually are able to, you know, perhaps take a sabbatical or provide like mental health resources for staff members, and things like that. So that's like a component part of like our solidarity program.
That's excellent.
And so I actually have been in I'm in the midst of like working on some research myself that is actually about how to build systems of rest within anti-racist organizations. And so thinking about it through a lens of not only sort of the emotional and physiological rest, but how do you actually support systems that build resilience, empathy, and solidarity through a trauma-informed lens.
When that's going to be out? When that going to come out? Is it going to drop soon?
I'm working on it.
The publisher needs it to the house.
And so, you know, that's part of like the framework of some of like the consulting work that I do and some of the leadership development stuff. And again, synchronizes very well with the like work that I'm doing at the Community Foundation and like what we're doing to support, again, both service delivery and like the support of our nonprofit safety net and our social safety net that exists, but also how do you like invest in the people who are like powering these things. So to sort of answer that question, like how, that sort of consistency is currency, and then how do you prevent burnout? It's centering people. And again, thinking differently, because sometimes if you're thinking about, again, how do you, feed, 500 kids or move, families from poverty,
right,
or support literacy and things of that nature, it's the people who are in those nonprofits. So it's not just about like funding perhaps the program, but again, supporting the people who are actually doing that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can do that in a lot of different ways. But continuity is definitely.
Well, I was just talking to somebody about succession planning. Mm-hmm. How a lot of organizations, like, if somebody on this team dropped dead today, we might be in a world of trouble, because it's like you hold so much information. We love you, but we need you to live forever, essentially, to keep the lights on.
That's right.
So it's really about succession planning. It's about, not just in the nonprofit space, but it's like in our, our community work. It's like there are people who've been doing this a long time, but you got to let us do a little something, Grandpa. You have to trust us to take the torch and move forward. And that's hard for folks because they care so much.
Yeah.
And are entrenched in a traditional way of doing things. And so, I know it's hard, but we need to be able to be planning for the people who are supposed to be standing up for rights and stuff moving forward. Because it can't be you forever. So I think about that a little bit. With continuity and succession planning. And we need to be building up community leaders, because our community leaders can't be the community leaders forever. And they shouldn't have to be.
Yeah, true. Very true.
We shouldn't maybe putting people in a position where it's, if I leave, this thing can't work anymore. They go to burnout right there, because now you can't trust us. We need you. We holding on to you. And every day, that's not human-centered.
Yeah.
So it's really about prepping the next generation to take on the work. And I think we need to be putting more resources into that.
Yeah.
I think we've already established that I'm cynical. So I won't contextualize this question with anything else. How much of that is the system? How much of that is people's egos? Right? So how much of it is the reflexive nature of you're not letting me fade away or back out?
Everything
How
is
much
the system, but I think it is
the
ego.
really?
No, I'm saying, hold up. I'm saying I think a lot of things is the system, but I think that it's about the egos.
Yeah.
In this particular situation.
Yeah. I mean, look, let's call it what it is. How much of the inability for some stuff, and I'm speaking locally, right?
Yeah.
And I'm speaking locally and anecdotally, right? But how much of the inability for some stuff to move, right? How many ideas that you've seen maybe come across your desk that you're like, oh man, this would work, or this is fundable, or this is new and creative and cool, have died at the altar of people's egos? right? So we have all this talk about the system, which is true. We have all this talk about the funding, which is true. What I don't know that we address enough is that, like, y'all, some of this stuff has just collapsed under the weight of people wanting it to be their thing. And as a organization that sits right where you sit, am I right? Do you see that? Like, have you sort of seen some stuff that, you know, that you've either heard of or been a part of where you're like, oh yeah, that could work, and then all of a sudden you're just like, what in the world? Like, y'all really couldn't pull that together?
So I don't think that I have had the personal experience of actively being involved and witnessing it happen with my very own eyes.
Right.
But I have heard stories.
Yeah, sure.
And actually, one of the sort of case studies that I ended up doing in my Master's of Nonprofit Administration was actually about sort of the idea of nonprofit ego.
Yes.
And so being unable to actually collaborate with partners who are like natural partners.
Yeah.
Because you want your name
Yes.
on something versus like it being a collective or something else. And there's even like these really interesting sort of projects that where an agency with a really large name might be able to get pull down a bigger funder. And then what they want to do is to actually work with some smaller nonprofits to actually complete a project or a work, and they sort of revenue share that money.
Yeah, like a pass-through.
Like a pass-through. And so, but there's always this like tension of like,
Yes.
they're subsuming me.
Yes.
And so like
That's a huge problem.
There's like different levels, both like top down, bottom up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, everybody,
sideways. And then
It's hard to
not only the organization, sometimes it's just the like humans in the organization.
Yeah, the ecosystem is so the nonprofit ecosystem is so fragile.
Fragile's a good word for it.
It's like we all want to do. We all say we want to do the right thing and work for people's
that's
benefit.
right.
And if working together does that, of course, why not work together? But it's super hard when it feels like we all got to get a piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another interesting like component of that is like just the power of like information sharing.
Yes. Yes.
And so like what would systems look like if individual or if organizations sort of approached the support of an individual who's like moving through their particular circumstance and doing it in a way that's like holistic. And so if you're all sharing information, there's like a common space for like a case manager who like helps coordinate all the things. Just being able to like do that in a much more collective and holistic way. Just what that might do for like the end user. It might not be the glitz and glam for like you, and you don't distinctly own the thing.
Yeah.
But again, it's actually about serving the people and not necessarily about serving like you or the organization. So there's a lot of space for like new thinking and just thinking about like collaborative and different ways of like both healing and transforming and supporting people. So
I think we can work better together.
Well,
teamwork makes the dream work.
I think to his point too, I mean, there's a clear technological application to exactly what he said, right? And the problem with what is a very good idea is exactly that of, no one can take credit for it and sell it. No one can say, right, it has to be a thing that exists cross-functionally that is used for the betterment of the folks who we would all claim we are trying to help, right? Which I think sometimes takes second chair to like, there's two ways to tell that story. It's these people were supported or I supported them, right? And we sometimes want to talk out of both sides of our mouths because in order to support the people, I want to say I supported them to get the money to ostensibly support the people. And we haven't found a good way to come to grips with kind of the purity of the argument, which is at some point we have to decide what we're doing. Right, we just decide who we are, right? Are we the people that are going to genuinely do the things that need, like, I think there's this fundamental disconnect between, like, the goals that we set for ourselves and the things that are actually needed and able to be delivered on. And I think there has to be, I've said this a lot, there has to be a little more of a come to Jesus accountability within the nonprofit ecosystem itself, right? We need to be able to look at each other and our partners and practitioners and be like, you didn't do that very well. Okay, fine, right? But there's this sort of politeness that ultimately doesn't hurt us. But who does it hurt? Like you said, it's the end user. It's the people that are having to make 9 phone calls to find out they don't qualify for the one thing they need. We can't be okay with that, right? But I think your point's well taken. I think the efficiency in the way that we use systems is antiquated, right? And I think exactly it's a who's on first thing. Everybody agrees with you, and nobody's been like, okay, like let's do something about it, right? And I think there's a huge opportunity to do that. Let's do that.
Let's do it. What do you hope your legacy is for the work you've done here in Charlottesville? If that be professionally, personally, like, what is the mark you want to leave on this place if you don't leave us? If you ever leave?
Ooh, that is deep.
It's the final questions. It's the final.
It's true.
The legacy. Well, I mean, when I enter any space, I just want it to be better after I've left. Mm-hmm. And so I think the Community Foundation has been a really interesting space for me to grow and to be. And so whether it's like my continued work at the Community Foundation or if I'm somewhere else within Charlottesville in our greater community, I just hope to leave it better. And so the work that I'm doing at the Community Foundation is all about continuing to build the capacity and the sustainability of the Community Foundation. And by nature and virtue, it's an institution that has the structure and purpose of being in perpetuity. And so being able to increase the funding that's available through the Community Foundation is both valuable work for our community, and it allows for it to both exist in perpetuity, but to also be incredibly responsive to what our community needs. And I think that's the superpower of the Community Foundation, is that it can and is a funding source and partner and thought partner and a place that is continuing to think about the new frontier, the innovation within our space and within our community that ensures that everyone is able to have a community that is vibrant. And so I think, at least in my current role, in the current space that I'm in, which I love and has been really great and healing for me, the legacy would be just continuing to grow that institution, to be that anchor within our community that folks can look to and be both proud of and be that's my Community Foundation. So yeah, making the place just better, and the Community Foundation has the power of doing that through philanthropy. So yeah,
if people want to get in touch with you or the Community Foundation, or you have things going on that could help people, how can they find out more about you and your organization?
Yeah, they can check us out at cacfonline.org. And then my email. Well, you see,
find it on the side.
I know. I was
use the internet.
Yeah.
I was first I was what's my phone number?
I don't know about all that.
I don't know about that.
I don't know my work phone number by heart.
That's totally fair.
But yeah, find us online, cacfonline.org. All of our emails and contact information are on there. So, and follow us on social media. We post really cool things. We actually just we attended the Buckingham Award nights. So we got 3 new scholarships in Buckingham County. And so one of our most recent posts was actually from the scholarship award ceremony. So
let me go look that up.
Look at it. You look that up. And if you guys have ideas for the show or want to get in touch with us, make sure you follow us on social media on all platforms at United Way Cville, at City of Promise, and what is it? What are they?
What are?
What do we? How do we find you? What's the social media presence? for our community foundation? I thought you were looking it
I'm,
up.
I, and I
You didn't
haven't-
make it there yet?
No, I typed in community.
Good night.
It's like
Moon.
it's like Charlotte's like
Oh.
Seville
Charlotte's-
area.
it's like CF or something.
Okay, but see, that I didn't come.
Yeah.
Nothing came up.
Yeah, it's like
Listen
Seville
to
area.
this one. The young one in the booth. Come on, we're counting on you.
Okay, there it goes. Seville area, CF.
Seville area CF.
Yeah.
That's the one. We get support on this show from our friends at City of Promise and at the United Way. And if you like what you hear, share this with your friends. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for new episodes every week. And of course, the best way to support us is consider making a contribution. CACF, City of Promise, United Way. That's how we continue to do our community work and this show. For Terrell and Markey, this is Price. Big thanks to our sponsor and friend, the Jefferson School Foundation, proud owner of the Jefferson School City Center. Check them out as well at jeffersonschoolfoundation.org. Enjoy the weather. We will see you next week.
Peace.
Bye.